Good evening, everyone. We do have a quorum present. If I can get a approval of the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have with us this evening Dr. James Martin III, who's here interviewing with us this evening for the superintendent position here at Eufaula City Schools. How you doing?
Oh, great.
Okay.
It's been a good day. Really
All right.
has.
Are you good? Do you need anything?
They gave me some water, so I'm about as good can be.
All right. Okay. Well, we will begin the process, and I guess I'll start things off for you.
Okay.
If you would, tell us about your personal background and professional experience and your belief in public education and why you're interested in being our superintendent.
Okay. My personal background, basically I'm a husband of 26 years, and we have two children, one 24, one 14. You know, I actually am a product of public education. I went to Auburn, received my undergrad in music education, was a high school band director for 13 years. I was a middle school principal, and I was a high school principal, and then I became a superintendent and been a superintendent for the last 10 years in Chattahoochee County, and then I went over to Harris County for the last 4 of that. So had a wide gamut of experiences, but I'll tell you, every one of them have been beneficial along the way, every one of them. As far as wanting to be the superintendent here in Eufaula, after today, I can tell you it's something I definitely want. Y'all are very fortunate. You have good people. You have good people that I see that care about education. One of the reasons it attracted me to Eufaula is I've always known throughout the years, me having gone to high school at Smith Station, we made many trips to Eufaula during those times, and I was, unfortunately, during my time, that was during Smith Station's losing streak, which, you know, I get reminded of from time to time, but that's good too. But I always knew that the community of Eufaula has been very supportive of their public schools, and it's something that I feel that I would like to be a part of that. And today, just in seeing a lot of the things that your principals are doing, one thing that gets me in a public school a lot of times is that kids, you can tell a lot about the climate of your school, how your students interact with their principals and how involved the principals are. And I will say, your principals, every one of them, the kids every school I went into, kids came up to their principal. And that's a testament to them. That's a testament to them. And I just, and you're very fortunate to have those type of principals in your schools. But as I was going through, it just more or less solidified why I wanted to be here. I can see that, I see that there are challenges here, but those are things that we're going to work on. Those things we need to work on. Because my attitude is if you're not getting better, you're not doing anything. And that's what we have to do, is work to get better every day. And that's something that we're going to have to do as a team. And that's why, I want to be part of this team.
Thank you. Dr. Lockwood.
Shifting gears just a little bit to discipline, what's your philosophy about discipline in today's schools, and how has that philosophy changed as a result of the current safety concerns?
Well, one, I've always had an approach to discipline as being, firm, consistent, and fair. That's been always my approach, even from the time I was a band director through the time I was a principal, all the way up to superintendent. I think that most students, even your students that are the ones that may act like they don't want it, they want some order. They want consistency. They want to know that they're getting a fair shake. And they know, they may not like their punishment, but they'll know they're getting a fair shake. I can remember when I was a principal, I had a student come in and say, okay, I know what I'm getting. And it was probably one of the worst kids in the school, but he says, I know what I'm getting, so he said, just give it to me. And I go, no, I need to ask you some questions first, because you have to give them due process. But he was already pleading guilty and already giving himself his punishment because he knew what was coming. And when you get to that point of consistency, they know what the expectations are. And I think if you do those types of expectations, it's huge. Now, safety, with the heightened awareness in safety, I know there's been some issues here with some threats and things of that sort here in the last few weeks. Safety has changed the game a little bit in the fact that sometimes back years and years ago, kids would cut up and say stupid things. But you got to take all those types of things seriously now, because you cannot say, okay, well they're just talking. No, because there could be that one time that they were doing more than just talking, and it's changed the game a little bit there. It makes us have to be a little more vigilant in how we look at things and look at things that are out of the ordinary. We actually have to work with our teachers and train our teachers to look for those types of things too. One thing I have noticed is every school I went to had a buzzer system, and I love that. It was huge. I love that. But I also noticed this is a lot of schools, because they're older schools, I know that y'all lock doors. I've noticed that, and that's what you have to do. But they are open campuses. You always have a challenge in education today with this. Is school buildings have to appear inviting to the public, but you also have to make them secure at the same time. And that's a tough balance. It really is a tough balance, because you want people to come to your school, but you have to be secure at the same time. And that's been a tough balance that all of us in education, and I know that our folks here have had to deal with that balance. Because you want people to come to your school, you want parents involved. And it's a tough balance. I know I went a little further than answering the question, but still.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
I brought my Alabama out.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, we talked a little bit about where I went to school during lunch, so.
Okay. Would you describe for us your philosophy about the role of fine arts in the schools?
Okay. I will tell you, having been a former band director, fine arts are very dear to me. And I will tell you one thing that I've had a great appreciation of arts is this. Students' talents lie in different areas. They really do. And a lot of students find their niche in fine arts where they don't find their niche in other places. And it offers an opportunity for students to be involved and be successful. That's something I've seen. Another thing it does too with fine arts is this. A lot of your students that are higher order thinkers, they have a great deal of application there. It actually promotes higher order thinking skills, even for just the average students, because you're actually applying what you learned in the classroom. It's more than just reading a book and answering the questions at the end of the chapter. You're actually doing. And that's one thing that I like about fine arts is it actually promotes higher order thinking skills. It actually makes it where students go beyond just regurgitation of facts. They're actually having to do. And that's why I feel that fine arts is essential. And it actually helps even the other subject matters because of the fact, this other subject matter in the school, because of the fact that they do have those higher order thinking and application aspects within their curriculum already built in. It's just natural.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin, good to see you.
Good to see you.
How have you been involved in ongoing physical management, and what are your strengths and weaknesses regarding physical management?
Okay, I'm big on physical management, and it almost occurred occurred purely by accident, really. When I became the superintendent in Chattahoochee County, the school system was actually in deficit financing, and we worked to get the system out of deficit financing with the state of Georgia. I didn't realize we were in deficit finance until I'd already signed my contract. But that was a reality check. And that was a first-time superintendent, going, well, you got to watch what you ask for because you might get it. But one thing we did is we worked collaboratively as a team. I'm talking about the whole Chattahoochee County family. And as soon as we gotten out of that, we hit the financial recession, the Great Recession. And really, it kind of helped us through the Great Recession in a way, because we didn't have to make any more cuts, because we'd already climbed out of a hole by making cuts, so we just sustained what we were doing throughout. Because we didn't have to make up anything, we just had to sustain what we had done. Made me look like a financial genius, but it was purely by accident in that regard. However, when I left Chattahoochee County and went to Harris County, we actually had a nice little reserve fund. And then when I went to Harris County, they were actually still doing furloughs. And during my time there, we actually within year one, we got rid of the furloughs. After year one, we actually, at year two, our teachers received a 3% raise. And then year three, they received a 2% raise. And then our fund equity, they call it fund equity in Georgia, but it's reserve, actually went from $3.9 million to right at $8 million. And a lot of that was is we were getting more money from the state, but at the same time, we had to be very responsible. Because when you get that kind of money, a lot of times you don't want to sit there and throw it away. Now, and my strength is the fact that I make sure that we're trying to get the biggest bang for every dollar we spend. That's my strength. My weakness is is that I'm not willing to take some chances sometimes. That is a weakness. Because I actually, sometimes I think you need to take those chances every once in a while, but I don't want to do it with taxpayers' money. And that's something I'm very cautious of. Every time I've ever received a superintendent's evaluation, the highest marks has always been in fiscal management. And I felt when I took the job, that was probably my weakest thing when I came into it. But I guess, what would you say, baptism by fire? It made it a strength. So.
Well, I wish I had one orange and blue to balance.
Just
Couldn't let that go. What would be your plan to recruit, train, mentor, and evaluate teachers and administrators in our school system?
One thing, and we talked about that today with the administrative team when we were in there, it's recruiting quality teachers is hard in today's climate. It's hard. It's not just here. It's everywhere. It's hard. And sometimes you have to go out there, and we've done this in the past in places I've been. We've actually done those college recruiting fairs and things of that sort. We actually, because we wanted to recruit more minority teachers in our system, we actually went to some of the historically black colleges and universities to do that. And we actually did experience some benefits on that. Now, the challenge is is that when you recruit a good teacher, everybody else is trying to recruit your good teachers away. Everybody is. I mean, every system around them, if they hear somebody's good, they're going to try to steal them from you. And the best way to hold on to them is one is through a good mentoring program. We actually, when I was in Chattahoochee and in Harris, we both put in a mentoring program where our teachers had that. One thing that you don't want to do, especially if you have a first-year teacher that's never taught, is you don't want to have a teacher come in and fail. Because if that teacher fails, more than likely, you're failing your students, you're failing children. You want that teacher to be successful, because if they're successful, ultimately your students are successful. And one thing that gets me too is that you always, it's an investment when you hire somebody. I mean, it's a huge financial investment, really, because you got to count the salary and the benefits on top of that. And I think by having a good mentoring program, and it actually helps retain those teachers, because they actually feel good about where they work. They feel good about the situation they're in. They feel secure. One thing that, and they feel supported. And that's what you want them to feel, is supported. I've seen way too many times, even with teachers that come from other systems to here, we need to have some type of mentoring program, probably not at the scale of a novice teacher, which ours was not at the scale of a novice teacher, a new teacher, totally new out of college. But we did have some type of program, because the way we do things in Eufaula may be different than the way we did things in Phoenix City or Dothan or wherever, Ozark, wherever they came from. And they need to, one of the worst things we could ever do is have a teacher make a mistake that's really takes their job seriously on something that we should have told them. And that turns them off and they want to leave as quick as they got here. And we don't want that, because we're constantly retraining teachers on professional development in programs, and we're throwing the same money at the same thing to try to keep them trained up in the educational programs, because you're going to train people up that come in new. So you haven't invested that load of money in professional development, and you don't want to waste that either. And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge.
What do you consider to be the most important duties of a superintendent, and how do you see the role of the superintendent as it relates to the school board employees as well as the community and students?
Okay. Principal primarily is really like a CEO of a large organization, or chief operating officer of a huge organization. But I feel that the superintendent should be a team builder, and should be someone that actually builds a team to accomplish an objective. An effective superintendent does that. Effective superintendent helps consolidate everybody's views, everybody's approaches into one strong vision for the district, and help communicate that vision. Way too many times, I've seen superintendents come into school districts new, and all they want to do is talk about their vision for the school district. Well, it may not be the district's vision, but it's their vision, and they want it to become the district's vision. The problem is it needs to be a consensus of everybody. As far as how it relates to the board, superintendent's the sole report to the board. We all know that. And that's how it is. But I will tell you too, the board and the superintendent formulate, and we all know this, is the governance team for the district. And by us being a governance team, we need to act as a team and support each other. And one thing that I will say is this, and this is something that always upsets me a lot of times. I worked for a superintendent before that had surprised boards from time to time. I don't think you should be surprised. It's my job to communicate to you. It's also the principal's job to communicate to me, and it's the job of everybody to communicate with each other. I need to communicate with everybody. Way too many times we lose focus because we haven't adequately communicated. I know that a lot of times, a lot of frictions in boards occur a lot of times over poor communication with boards and superintendents because of poor communication. I mean, I know that. I've seen it. And I don't think that should ever be the case. I don't think it should ever be the case, because I feel that communication needs to be an open line both ways. I really do. And that's something that with our the administrative teams I've worked with in the past, I still have many people I worked with in the past on administrative teams that still call me all the time. I mean, we still communicate, and I don't even work with them anymore, but we still communicate. We still send Christmas greetings and birthday greetings and things of that sort. My last birthday greeting I received from one of my former principals that worked with me in another district was I was getting old. That was a nice birthday greeting, but at least it was nice to have that kind of relationship.
Okay, thank you.
With regards to educational programs, how do you see the superintendent's role, and how do you see the school board's role?
I think that one is the superintendent needs to gather as much information as they can to inform the board about what's going on in educational programs. And usually the administrative team and everything kind of helps pull all that information together. And it's really the superintendent's role to try to communicate that to the board, because you don't want to ask the board to make a decision with half of the information. That happens a lot too. That really does. And I do know this is that when we do educational programs or change educational programs, we need to make sure we're not throwing away something good and replacing it with something that we don't have all the information on. That happens a lot. Education is probably the most guilty culprit of jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing without giving something a chance to work, just because it was an idea that somebody picked up at a conference. I mean, and I was guilty of that myself very early in my administrative career as a young principal, and I realized, hey, we're spending a lot of money here and we haven't given anything a chance to work. And I think that a lot of times it kills your teacher morale because you jump from thing to thing to thing, because they never get comfortable with anything, and then your students don't get comfortable either. And then it creates frustration for your building level administrators, because the fact is they're trying to work to keep morale up in their schools. You know, so I mean those are some, and I think the board's role is to be able to make a well-informed decision. And I feel that's important, that the board asks for that information and asks for that information from me in order to make that well-informed decision. It's not fair for me to ask you to do it if you don't have all the information.
High performance by the students and accountabilities are a priority for us. And how would you assess the current student performance level in our system, and how would you assess the effectiveness of our teachers and program?
As far as the student performance now, what information I have, I'm going to just tell you that the information I have is basically just stuff that I've received by doing just a little bit of research. Because I have not dug down into subgroups and things of that sort, because I don't have that information, because it hadn't been out there released for public. But just what I have is just general information. But I will tell you what I've seen is in grades 3 through 8, for the most part, 30% proficiency in reading and math is not good enough. I'll just be frank. It's not good enough. Eufaula's better than that, and we all know it. We all know that. Eufaula's a lot better than that. You know, and I will tell you this, as far as teacher effectiveness, I'm going to tell you that teachers are working hard. I've been in the schools I saw today, and those teachers, the classrooms I went into, those teachers are working hard. The only thing is we need to support them. We need to support them. And we need to try to find ways in order to help them more effectively do their job, help them more effectively, give them the information so that they can make those performance targets. And those are some things that we do need to do. Now, one thing that gets me is we get so inundated with data. I remember when I was a young principal, we'd get those little sheets. That was back when they did the SAT-9, if y'all remember that. We'd get those little sheets that had everything broken down on it, everything, and I printed out every one of those sheets and put them in notebooks for teachers so that they would know what their children did not know. But I'm going to tell you this, one thing we've got to do is this, is we need to make instruction relevant to children. If it's relevant to children and promote higher order thinking skills, they'll perform. We've got to make it relevant. The thing is every child in our school system is more than a number, more than a score. They are. They're more than a score. And and I know that we get so much into the data piece, and I think data is very important. I think it gives us trends, but at the same time, we need to be educating kids. We need to give them the best we have. And I can see y'all have some teachers that are working, and we've got to find out where we're not hitting the mark and try to hit it, because our kids deserve it.
Thank you.
What is your experience with facility management and construction?
Okay, I've been fortunate in the respect that both districts I've been a part of, I actually experienced growth. When I was in Chattahoochee County, we actually were in the process where they had the base realignment and closure, that BRAC that came there, in the Armor School. We had to do, I think we did 3 additions to our high school and had to do some renovations to our elementary school during that process. And in Georgia, it works a little bit different than Alabama, but we still had to do the bonding issue. But in Georgia, if we did any sort of bonding, a lot of times we tied it to a special purpose local option sales tax referendum, and the bond referendum was tied into that same referendum. And when I was in Chattahoochee County, we had to go out and talk to everybody, talk to every group. I don't think there may have been a handful, but there wasn't very many people I did not talk to in Chattahoochee County during that time, because that was the first one I ever did, and I was afraid if it failed that I was going to look like an idiot because of what was going on. But what I did is I talked to everybody, and I remember I camped out at the courthouse when they were doing the election results. And it was funny. I know that the elections person was just laughing like crazy at me, but I camped out there, and it passed by over 90% because we showed everybody that there was a need. We showed everybody where we needed to do some things, and a lot of that happens a lot of times because the fact too, when things fail like that, you end up sometimes in some communities with people high opposition. But if you really show a true, genuine need and show how it's going to benefit kids and the end game, it more than likely it'll pass. It will. And the thing is, you have to get your community involved. Our county commission was very supportive of it there, and I actually got our chamber to endorse it. We went around and did our homework before we actually started campaigning for it. But I'm not going to lie, I was scared, because I was worried about it, because I just could see us with acres of trailers out there, mobiles. So.
What is your philosophy and experience in alternative education programs like alternative school or homebound, virtual school, gifted programs, twilight night school?
One thing I will say is we've had some very successful alternative programs in both districts I've been a superintendent in. I remember when I became superintendent in Chattahoochee, we had an alternative program, but it was not very well structured. When I was principal and you had kids requesting to go to alternative school, it kind of concerned you. But one thing we did, and this was something that we did that was a little bit creative and outside the box in our alternative education program. We actually we took our alternative school kids, and they were on a different campus than our other kids, and actually developed a program there. But we did an alternative education program, what you were talking about with virtual school and things of that sort. We did one that was actually for students that they were not major discipline problems, and they were not thriving in the traditional classroom setting. You know what I'm saying? And they were at risk of dropping out, and we were trying to keep students in school, and they were at risk of dropping out. So we developed in Chattahoochee County, we developed a program called the ACE Academy, and it was an acronym that our teachers came up with. I can't even remember what the acronym meant, but I remember it being ACE Academy. And we actually took a wing of about 3 classrooms on one short wing at our high school, and we took that and utilized that for our ACE Academy, and those students stayed down there most of the day, and it was mainly through online type education, work at their own pace. But now we had to set benchmarks for them to achieve at that point in time. But it worked for our group of kids that had those issues. And when I got to Harris County, they had something very similar already set up in place. It was very successful. It was so successful, it actually received an award from the state of Georgia for alternative education because of how they did it. And it was something that was very similar to what we did in Chattahoochee County, but they had done it so long that it was working like a machine. One thing, you want every child to have an opportunity to experience the true high school experience. You want every child to do it. And you try to give your students that are in a non-traditional high school, I call it more or less, of alternative education, not it's academic, not discipline. You try to give them as much of that as you can, but at the same time you try to give them as much as you can to make sure they're successful and get that high school diploma. And it actually helps in the regular classroom, because otherwise they'd be a distraction. I mean, just frank with you, they would. But our kids in that program thrived. And we actually even worked something out with our area technical college, where they came out and taught a class out there on that wing, and kids loved it. They actually did it, and they actually worked it up where they could do it on like some kind of FaceTime type thing over the computer, and it worked out great. And I know we have our tech person. That's probably not the correct.
It works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, share with us, what has been the biggest problem in community school relations in your career, and what did you do about it? And describe some specific strategies that you would use to promote parent and public support in this area.
I'll tell you one thing that's, and I had a little bit of this in Chattahoochee County when I first arrived there as a principal, and even when I first became superintendent, just a little bit of it. It wasn't bad, but it was just a little bit of it. Is a lot of these families, we had a lot of single parent homes. Well, that single parent was working in order to support their families, and and a lot of times people want to be involved, but they don't have the opportunity to be involved just because of their circumstances. And we've got to think outside the box. You know, we did a lot of night programs for parents and kids and involve their kids, and they'd come to those things, so we did a lot of those things. You involve kids in those types of things, and we didn't do it just with like a Christmas choral performance. We did it with, we actually did like academic type presentations where kids came in and showed what they did in the classroom, like projects and things of that sort, where it actually got people, got the parents and everything excited about what the students were learning in school. One challenge you have too is this: it's not every parent had a good experience in school. I mean, not every parent did. Sadly enough, they didn't. And my attitude is this: is if I didn't have a good experience somewhere, I probably don't want to go back there. You know, I mean, just frank with you, I just wouldn't want to go back there. There's some restaurants I had a bad meal at. I don't go back there to eat again. And that happens with parents too, unfortunately. The thing we have to do is sometimes we actually have to be willing to do things off of campus, at a neutral site somewhere. We actually we had a community center in Harris County, and we used the community center as a neutral site and had great participation there. We actually had some parenting workshops and things of that sort, and we actually did them on a Saturday morning. And we had a corporate sponsor that actually fed them. Now, you provide food, people are going to show up, and they showed up, and it was huge. And we actually saw people there that we had not even seen in the schools. Now, granted, Harris County is a place that has phenomenal parental support. I mean, phenomenal parental support at everything. But we were trying to reach the kids whose parents we had not seen. In other words, we tried to reach everybody, tried to cast that net wide. And I think that's something we have to do and think outside the box on those types of things. And I can tell you, your best people for it are your people in your classrooms. Your teachers know. And I know y'all know too, because you go to church, and some of you probably have gone to high school with many of these folks too, if you've lived and grown up in Eufaula. And y'all know how to reach these folks, and we need to be willing to listen and exchange those ideas to try to cast that net wide.
What's your opinion about the proper relationship of academics versus sports and other extracurricular activities? And also describe your philosophy about middle school and high school sports.
Okay. Now, me having been an extracurricular activity type teacher in my past, I'm going to say I feel those are important. But I'm going to tell you this, as being an educator, there's a reason why we exist, and that's to educate children. we're here to educate children. Now, in the process of educating children, academics should always come first, because our students need to understand that you have to do certain things in order to do other things. It's just a way of life. That's a functioning society, and we need to understand it. We have to do our academics in order to be successful in the athletic field, or the band field, or in the course room, or what have you. I know a lot of times students think that playing football comes first, and then the rest of it comes second. But if you can, and it takes some work, but I've done it before. You tell those coaches, hey, you gonna help me on this, and when they help you on it, it provides a sense of urgency. It does provide a sense of urgency with those young people, and I think that's something that we need to communicate as a consistent basis about the role of academics. We're an academic institution. All of our schools are academic institutions, and that's something that we need to understand. It's like I remember when I was a high school principal, I had a young coach that was actually a science teacher, very good science teacher. And I remember one day I walked by his classroom, and he was in there drawing plays on the board and had kids writing out of a book. And I said, your coach's supplement don't pay more than your teaching contract. Last time I checked, now if you want to work for $2,000 a year, I'll be glad to pay you that. But they had to understand, and sometimes we have to, as adults, sometimes we have to understand that. Let's just be real about it. But I think that, if we can get everybody on the same page, they'll understand that role. Now, getting to the middle school and the high school aspect is that I feel that the middle school athletics program should be a functioning athletics program. However, I feel that the middle school programs exist, one, to help kids develop the basic concepts in order to make that transition into a high school athletic program. I always have problems a lot of times where, and we had some of this in Harris County, where our middle school program was going off on its own, wanting to win middle school championships, but not encourage kids to play high school sports, and that's a big problem. And then we had to have one of those pulled together type meetings to get everybody on the same page. Because when you have 60 kids dressing out in 2 grades, and then you have 40 kids dressing out in 4, something's wrong. So we had a discussion about that, and actually made the situation better. But I think that really what your middle school program is, it's just like beginning band and intermediate band. Those programs exist to actually help build foundations in order for them to make that transition to the next level. Now, not all of them will, because not all of them are going to develop to the point to be successful at that level. We know that. But the thing is at least they understand the basic concepts, the basic techniques, and they understand what teamwork is. And that's a huge thing. That's something that if you can get a student to understand that in 7th, 8th grade, and they take it to task, it's something to carry them through life. And that's really, that's more important than anything we could ever do.
Dr. Martin, explain your view on the best way to integrate technology into the instructional process in order to raise the students in school.
One thing that technology, and I will tell you, a lot of teachers, I think a lot of teachers want to use technology. The thing is, I don't think a lot of them really know what to do, especially if there are any around in my generation. I just don't think that a lot of them really know what to do. And I think that we need to provide the support and the training in order to truly provide technological innovation into the classroom. I think that it's not a process where you're going to flip the light switch and it's going to happen. It's something where they're going to have to wade into it. Because if you try to flip the light switch and it happens, you're going to have a cluster. And it's going to be embarrassing to that teacher, and the kids are going to take it as a joke. And it's going to take away from the objective of the classroom. It's something where we're going to have to work with our teachers and actually develop it. And it's going to be something we're going to have to be persistent to do. The teachers need to really warm up to it, and we need to work, make sure that they do. We need to provide them that training. I'll tell you one thing that technology does. It makes it easier for a teacher to do in a classroom. There's certain things that you can do with technology in the classroom that helps you differentiate instruction on kids on different levels in the same classroom, and you could have all that going on at the same time. Technology's huge in that. You have kids that are, you have an achievement gap in your classroom where kids are low and kids are very high. You can challenge those kids that are high through the effective use of technology, and also at the same time remediate the kids that are low so that they can perform if you use it effectively in the classroom. It's an easy tool for differentiating instruction, and it's something that I've seen some of your technology people today, and they're on fire for technology. I mean, they really are. And the thing here is we got to help our teachers have that same fire. And I think that's just very important. I think it's essential for them to be successful in the 21st century world. Now, they know more about technology than we do, I can assure you that.
Describe your leadership and management style and what methods you have found to be most effective in the supervision and building rapport with administrators and employees.
Okay. And I had met with our administrative team here today, and I told them that I'm a team builder. I feel that way, as I'm a team builder. I think it's important for you to achieve a common mission. And I'll tell you this, is that I'm the kind that I like being visible. I like being accessible. And I'll tell you, by being approachable, sometimes it's a double-edged sword. I'll tell you. You go to the Walmart at midnight, it's a double-edged sword, because somebody's going to see you at the Walmart at midnight, and you don't look your best at midnight because you're running out trying to get some aspirin or some kind of ibuprofen or something for your child. You don't look your best at midnight, but somebody will see you that knows you, and they want to ask you a question. So it is a double-edged sword, but at the same time, I will tell you, people appreciate it because they know that you care, and I think I would be willing to take that over the alternative, and the fact that you do care about the child and their child's education. And I'll tell you, as far as with our administrators, y'all have a good administrative team. And I hope y'all know that. You do. They're good folks. They really are. At least what I saw today, they're good folks. And I do know this, is that is they want to be successful. And the thing is it's my job as a superintendent to do everything I can to help them be successful and create the climate for them to be successful by supporting them, by listening, by them listening to me from time to time, because they're going to have to do that too. But I think that's important. I've seen way too many superintendents that love to hear themselves talk. And my dad always told me growing up, God gave you 2 ears, son, for a reason, and 1 mouth. You better be listening twice as much as you talk. And now I'm not going to tell you how he guided me along that process, because that might not be legal in today's world, but he guided me along that process.
Okay. Before Ms. Richardson closes us out, do either board member have any more questions?
Got that 11.
Yeah.
The curriculum one. Can you ask for number 11? Question?
Number 11?
Yes.
Okay, I can do that. Let me get back here. Okay. What experience have you had with aligning educational programs in school to meet the current standards and workforce demand? What should be the superintendent role in a curriculum and instruction and the evaluation of the results?
Okay. And one thing I will tell you is, and that's become a challenge in today's climate, because it's an ever-changing climate. Because tell you right now I know it's happening in Alabama, but they're changing how they measure our effectiveness. It's like the target is flying all over the place. In Georgia, I'll just give you an example. In Georgia, student achievement counted larger than anything, and then they put closing the achievement gap, raised that, and it knocked everything all over the place. So you're chasing a target all over the place, and when you do that, that's a challenge, and it does create a little bit of a cynical attitude amongst your team. It really does. As far as workforce demands, our society right now is ever changing. I remember one time where everybody had to be on the college track to be successful. And I think all of us know that. They'd say if you were in the career tech side, you weren't successful. That was a perception. I told a story this morning to some of our board members. Is there was a young man that I taught when I was a band director early on in my career. I was like 20-something years old. And he was a 20-year-old high school senior. But he was good with his hands, and he took all the vocational classes. And he owns his own HVAC company. And he values his work very much. I know, because I've actually been his customer at one time. And he has charged me very nicely for it. And I said, can't you cut your old band director a break? He said, well, I remember when it was 100 degrees, you didn't cut us much of a break out there on that field. So he didn't cut me a break. But, with it ever changing is education is constantly having to respond to those changes in curriculum. And I think my role as superintendent is to try to gather as much information as I can, and listen to the information that our folks in our schools have before we do anything. The key in aligning curriculum to where we are is information. It's information. I have a big issue with this in curriculum. And I said it earlier. We go to a conference, we come home and say, hey, this is the program we need to go with. And you're already telling everybody in school, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, and all of us have seen it. All of us have seen it. And then about 18 months later, we go to another conference. And then we get another program. We come back, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I tell you this, I wouldn't blame the principals for being mad at me if I did something that stupid. I wouldn't blame them at all. They should be mad at me. If I was not superintendent, one of them were, and they did the same thing, I'd be mad at them. And that's the problem in our curriculum right now. We don't need to jump from thing to thing to thing. I think Mr. Hill and myself talked about that at lunch today, about how people jump from thing to thing. And in curriculum, it's a challenge because things are shifting, especially in our career tech society, because everything is becoming so highly with technology, inundated with technology. I mean, it really is. I mean, we look at this here with this thing here that's supposed to pick up my voice. I didn't even know one of those things existed until you put it down in front of me. So, but I'm just saying, it's just amazing some of the things that are coming around, and we've got to keep up with that type of technology, and that's a challenge, and it's a moving target. But the way we do it is by information, gathering as much information and doing as much research as we can to make those well-informed decisions and be good stewards of the taxpayers' money in that process. Because we don't want to sit here and say, hey, we're not going to do anything and our kids be left behind. We don't want that, because our kids are better than that. We don't want that at all, and I know y'all don't. But we need to make those well-informed decisions.
All right. Well, wrapping up, could you give your best 3-minute speech that would entice any community member to want to put their children in Eufaula City Schools?
And I'll tell you, me being from outside Eufaula, it's probably a little bit harder to do, but I will tell you, just based on what I've seen today, is if I had a parent sitting in front of me, I would ask them this, is that from what I've seen today, every administrator and every teacher I've met cares about kids. Everyone I've talked to, it was a children first priority. And my question to a parent is this: why wouldn't you want your children to be in a school system where it puts children first? You want the best for your children. Our school system wants the best for your children. We have programs in the Eufaula City Schools that are not offered in many areas of this state. We have fine arts programs in every school, art and music. We have them in every school. We have an excellent career technical program at our high school. We have opportunities where our kids can actually go out there and achieve and be part of a 21st century world and be a functioning member of that 21st century world. Wouldn't you want your child to be a part of that 21st century world? I'm a believer in Eufaula City Schools, and I want you to be a believer in Eufaula City Schools. I want you to be part of our family, because I can promise you this, is we'll do everything we can to take care of your child and give your child the best education they possibly could have. And I mean, I truly believe it. From what I've seen today, I am a believer. So, and y'all did a good job making me a believer today too. So.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin, we do want to thank you for your time and effort in coming before us this evening. Certainly have been very effective and positive interview today. If I can get a motion from someone to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? This does conclude this portion of your interview process, and again, we thank you so very much.
Thank y'all. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you a lot.
All right.